to talk about Yumlish, and we've had a lot of our your cohort members that have been a part of this. Start us off with talking about the idea behind Yumlish and you becoming a founder there with this great company.
So the way back when story, like the initial of like where this started, it was a seed that got planted years ago, even like way before I even started Yumlish. So I myself was going through some health challenges. I was really trying to understand certain things in my own health and was having all of these symptoms, and I finally get a diagnosis. This is a diet related sort of chronic condition that I get diagnosed with. And at the time, and in my background, by the way, Matt, you should know I come from management consulting, project management. So I come into this completely non-health background, coming to this going, what can we do? Like, how do we fix this? Because I'm a problem solver, right, by nature. And so my doctors goes, oh, just try to eat healthy. And that irked me to my core. You just can't give me like brush me off, give me these types of things. I wanted something a little bit more concrete, right, as a patient. What I eventually came to realize is that after going through this own health journey of mine is one, there wasn't a resource that you could turn to get very like structured help and guidance, right? Post diagnosis, it felt like you're just sort of Googling your way through, trying to figure these things out on your own. And especially within the context of the South Asian foods that I grew up on. I cook it to this day. This is what I eat. It's a staple in my family, right? Eating rice and rotis and bread and all of that. And so again, just going through that frustration of it all, I quickly realized is that there's something here, something that is untapped that needs to be addressed when it comes to cultural foods, when it comes to diet-related conditions. Something needs to be done, and that sort of planted that initial seed. And talking to friends, family, quickly realized like we're all in the same boat, trying to figure it out on our own, without again that structure support. So that's what I set out to build.
That's great. And, it's interesting, as part of what we're looking at with the Methodist Healthcare Ministries and Velocity Accelerator is we believe the people with the best solutions are those that are affected directly and
Mm-hmm.
sparking innovation. And again, your story is something that's very, very familiar, is these ideas coming out of something that is a personal problem that you've had to go, hey, I can overcome this, but how can everybody else overcome this? Oh, they can't. So let me see, figure out the innovation. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about Yumlish, because, part of your product, it's already out there, right? But it's the delivery and the innovative solution and
Yeah,
customization that really makes Yumlish special. Talk to our viewers about Yumlish.
absolutely. So at Yumlish, what we do is we provide tech-enabled, culturally affirming programs like diabetes prevention. So let me break down that very heavy statement there that I just said. So by tech-enabled, we provide web and text-based programs to individuals. We realized, so in the early days, Matt, when we started looking at, okay, let's unpeel this thing of diet-related chronic conditions. There are a number of them out there, by the way. And the
Right.
one that just kept coming to the surface for us was diabetes, and specifically type 2. And the reason being is that within type 2 itself, there's a lot to do within lifestyle modifications and the impact of that it can have on type 2 diabetes. And the second reason was we started looking at not only the data, but we realized that there's a solution today within type 2 diabetes that can help those individuals that are at risk for diabetes today to help either delay or reduce their chances entirely of developing type 2 diabetes. So a known solution already existed, right? Like what a space to be in. A problem exists that continues to grow year over year, which is diabetes. And yet we know a solution exists. It's from the CDC. It's called the Diabetes Prevention Program, right? So this program already existed. And quickly, after looking at data, we realized that this program, with all of its efficacy, again, 20 years worth of data around it, right? It already exists, and yet it's not getting to populations that truly need it. And
Right.
that to me was the opportunity to innovate, right? Is closing that gap.
Well, what's interesting is, and I've got a healthcare background, and around this innovation, which is great. People listening, and I'm sure you run into this too, go, well, wait a minute. I mean, aren't you going backwards? I mean, this text and web, like, don't you know we have the iPhone 300 and apps and everything? But the reality is, and even if you look at the government with meaningful use in using technology, apps actually become barriers to utilization of their technologies because of the, you know, I think you even said it right. I got to go download it. I've got to go through all the startup screens. But we keep creating innovations in technology with their own little app because it's easier and that's the way the tools are built versus making it accessible truly, which meaningful use too is looking to go appless, which I mean, I want to tell you congratulations for that because most people think you're going backwards, but you're
Mhm.
actually going forwards to where we really need to get to, which is text basing, web basing, HIPAA secured, connections exist. So that way there's greater accessibility for everybody on there. Sorry, that was my side note that I just need to get on my soapbox because it is something that people just misunderstand, I'm sure, with your product.
Oh, you're 100% right, Matt, and I'm so glad you even mentioned that. I mentioned that this program already exists with all of this efficacy. The problem is not that we don't have a flashy app. Trust
Right.
me, we don't need more flashy apps. That has never been the problem in the history of time. It's not about another app. The problem at this core is an access problem.
That's
How
right.
do you make this program accessible in low income populations where, by the way, diabetes is disproportionately impacted? So we know some of that data. But if we use that, then we say, okay, how do we solve an access problem, right? If you take the lens of, and we hear this from time to time, if you take the lens of tech first, your immediate solution becomes an app. Let's build
Mhm.
an app for that,
Right.
right? Like there must be an app for that out there, sure. But we took a
There
different
is.
approach.
Right.
Right. And so we took a different approach. We actually went back within federally qualified health centers and we already started, building some partnerships there very early on. And we started talking to them and we quickly realized, and this is user informed decision making, right? Now you are basing it based on the needs of the individual and not tech first. So you
Right.
gotta pull yourself from going tech first. But through that journey, we quickly realized is that individuals that we were talking to within these communities, it wasn't about another flashy app. It wasn't about what can they download on their phone or what kind of Bluetooth fancy device could they. If anything, it got complicated. Even if
Hmm.
I talked about Bluetooth device, like even a weight scale, all right, a weight
Right.
scale that's Bluetooth connected, we lost people,
Hmm.
right? They would get confused, like, wait, Bluetooth, so do I have to do something on my phone? And even those types of conversations, I felt after a while we were just turning into like customer support, like Apple's customer support or
Hmm.
Android's just trying to help people, navigate through that. So what you're hitting is really at the core of it now for us in the way we looked at innovation is to say, where are they spending their time? Let's scratch everything. Let's throw all the fancy gadgets out the door. Where are they spending their time? And the resounding answer for us just kept coming through text messaging. They're
Hmm.
spending their time there. They quickly understand that. They're spending their time on three apps for the 90% of the phone usage is happening on these three apps. And we quickly realize we need to exist somehow on these three apps, not create a whole another app and then force them to download another app and modify their behaviors for an app. It's not about an app.
Right.
It is how do
That's
we
right.
access them. And so that I think changed things dramatically for us in the way we were approaching things. And that's how we solved the access problem.
No, I mean, I think it's, I think it's fantastic to move to that because, I mean, just from a founder standpoint, right? Technology app, everybody goes, well, we can make an app for that. Well, the other reality too now is I probably have 200 apps on my phone now. In fact, I can't even, home screens are useless, which Apple's already kind of figured out, except for the first one, maybe. So you have to go search. And even for me, I mean, I'm tech, Apple Watch, Apple Scale, all sorts of stuff to measure. But if something like doesn't work anymore, I probably stop using the app, even though I've paid for it. So adoption and stickiness is gone. And that's where a lot of people are moving to versus looking at actually users in the healthcare space, like how it will impact them. So congratulations on that, because again, I think it's something that, is important to discuss of that's actually where we should be moving and away from this whole app structure To not take it back. I mean, some people need apps, but I think for a lot of it, healthcare needs to move to appless on there. Let me move to now the Methodist Healthcare Ministries and Velocity Accelerator. Congratulations on being a part of that accelerator here. And I will tell our viewers here that actually wrapped up last week, and we won't spoil the surprise yet. We'll talk about that and kind of what happened there. But what were the reasons why you decided you wanted to take the time from your company, busy growing that, to enter into that accelerator? What were the reasons why you guys decided to be a part of it?
I think the biggest reason for us was first MHM's footprint in South Texas. I think that was a big one for us. We'd been talking for a while, so most of our business. By the way, I'm based in Dallas, so we are Texas proud in the work that we're doing. I have another executive team member. He's based in Austin. We have another team member, in fact, our program manager, who is in South Texas in the RGV area, the Rio Grande Valley area. And we'd always been talking about, especially this work that we're doing so well in Spanish-speaking populations right here, Houston, Texas. We'd always for a while been talking about, we have got to find a way to get into South Texas. How we did that was still like a huge question mark for us of like, who are the right partners, who would really champion us in? Because you need those, right? As a startup, you really
Right.
need those champions to sort of bring you in. And so Methodist Health ministry specifically had just been on my mind for quite some time. And I had spoken to like Velocity, the folks over there as well. And they're like, you know what, you should be on the lookout for this program that's coming up. And about like a year ago, Matt, or like close to a year ago now at this point, like someone put it on my radar and I put like a thing on my calendar to check it every single month because I was waiting for this program to be announced because, like I said, because we're doing so much work in largely Spanish speaking populations, it would be a waste if we didn't take it to South Texas and to the Rio Grande Valley. So for me, it was very intentional to be in the program, to participate in it. I think the program manager of Velocity Texas, when I'd initially applied, I started bombarding them with emails to say, you don't understand, this program is very important. Let me tell you all the reasons why. They may even block my emails for a while, but that's the point. That's how passionate I was about bringing the program to South Texas because it just made so much sense for us to be able to take it there, just given the success that we've had so far in Dallas and the work that we've done here.
So let me ask you this, and again, part of this is post accelerator. So when you were looking at the accelerator, what was the value you saw in the pilot project that
Yeah,
was at the end of the program? At that
yeah.
time, what was that value that you saw?
I immediately saw, so MHM's footprint and the network that they have was a big one for me. Because, like I said, you need the right champions, you need the right stakeholders on the table who are coming together to understand here's a problem, here's a solution. How do we create a sustainable long term pathway, not a one off thing, but a
Right.
long term pathway? And that's the role that I see MHM would play for us. So, back when I was applying, that was really like my guiding sort of like North Star to say, like, I knew when even before the application turned on that, I knew exactly where I wanted the pilot to hit. So you could have asked me this question a year ago and I would have had the same answer for you.
Well, and I guess with that note, we'll do the great reveal. Congratulations on winning that pilot
Thank you.
program from Ministries. Very excited to see
Thank you.
everybody present, and I know it was a very close and tough decision for Methodist Healthcare Ministries as they went through that. So, tell us about the pilot that you're going to be having down in the Valley starting in the new year, based upon being the winner of the accelerator.
Yeah, we're super, super excited about that. And like I said, I've been wanting for this to come together for like a year now. So it's just honestly a dream come true. Within the pilot itself, we want to be able to work with. We're still identifying a federally qualified health center to work with in the Valley. With this health center, with this federally qualified health center, we're essentially going to partner on our program. The diabetes prevention program that I mentioned earlier is, over web and text. It's culturally affirming. It's created with Spanish first. So we didn't create it in English and then just translate it in Spanish. It was very much Spanish first.
Right.
And we want to be able to take this there. So in partnering with the federally qualified health center, we'll be able to identify those individuals who are right at the cusp of developing diabetes, be able to provide this text-based solution to them and reduce their chances of developing diabetes. Through the pilot program, we would come upon certain outcomes that we want to determine. Another partner that we want to bring to the table, of course, MHM, this federally qualified health center that is to be determined. And then we want to be able to bring a Medicaid partner to the table as well, a managed care plan to the table as well, whereby we want to be able to determine what does the long-term success for this look like? What are the types of things we want to show in the pilot? Just really thinking ahead, like what are the types of outcomes that we want to be able to measure outside of what the CDC determines to be appropriate for the program. But what are some of those things that can help over the long term to really be able to sustain this program beyond the pilot? So that's another goal of ours out of the pilot program as well.
Which is great. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys are going to be able to provide your service, right, at scale to be able to get into a market that I'm sure, I mean, we all know is diabetes and the impact of diabetes on our society is huge. Diabetes within, certain cultural segments of our society are even huger than huge, if I want to just create my own words, it appears. But you're going to get to impact those people down in the valley that are the most underserved at the same time of getting that commercialization that you need to show as you move on across the state to take this innovation impact, millions of people, right?
You're absolutely right, man. And where you're talking about the need itself, there's data out there that shows, like, nationally, I think diabetes prevalence sits about 7-10% in the general sort of population. But when we talk about the valley specifically, that rate jumps to 26%. We're talking about over a quarter of the
Wow.
population. So if there's ever been a time and if there's ever been a place for us to be able to take this solution, I feel for all of those reasons is so apt to be able to take that to the Valley, being the Spanish First program that we are.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. And what are you most excited about with getting this pilot project going down in the valley with Methodist Healthcare Ministries?
I think the biggest thing that I'm most excited about, one, just this opportunity. So I'm still sort of like, just like taking a breather and be like, wow, it actually happened, right? So
Right.
just digesting is like the first thing. But I think one of the biggest things for me is to be able to even have the brand association with Methodist Health Ministries. That's big for a
Right.
startup, right? Given our size. So being able to be associated with MHM, being able to work with the FQs in the Valley, being able to create those partnerships with them that ideally, again, sustain beyond the pilot program itself, being able to track those outcomes. We've been able to do that in communities outside of the Valley. So like I mentioned, we're operating in Dallas today. We've got programs here. We've also been working in California, which is another market that we operate in.
Right.
And so we know that we're able to translate this tech-enabled program into outcomes. And so I can't wait to prove it out in the Valley and be able to adapt the program to the specific needs of the area to be able to address it in a very similar way. So I'm certainly excited about that. And last but not least, I'm most excited about what this means for us long-term beyond a pilot program. Bringing the right stakeholders together is so pivotal for a startup to really look at long-term success, because it's not only about proving outcomes, but what do those outcomes really mean and whom does it benefit, and how do we associate a financial, sort of, again, sustainability with that long term. So for me, I'm truly excited about that. It's not only about getting to RGV and Rio Grande Valley, but how do we sustain that relationship that really carries us through? And above all, it's about impact. Or like, why are we doing any of this? It's about creating that impact. And so I'm truly excited to see how we can change those numbers from that that 25% the 26%, in fact, that I mentioned earlier. How can we
Right.
put a sizable dent in that over time?
Well, we wish you and Yumlish the best in deploying this innovation in your continued growth. And I'll look forward to having you come back, in 9 months and share with us and with everybody, the benefits of that. Let me ask you one last question here, because I think, again, you've gone through the process. You haven't gone through it all the way with the pilot, but what would you give a potential founder that is on the fence of whether or not to join this or not? What would you say are the benefits that they need to know that maybe they haven't experience because you've gone through it yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I think for any founder, it's so important to know that you can't do this alone. You have big ideas and big dreams, and you want to create, A, B, or C, whatever it is that you want to create. One, come from a place of passion. For me, I'm a lived experience founder. I am very passionate. You probably heard that on the stage from me the other day, but
Yes.
I'm an extremely passionate founder, and I recognize that. I understand that, but come from a place of passion, and then understand with a program like this, with a community health accelerator, what do you really want to get out of it, and how does MHM and different stakeholders really open up opportunities for you? Because again, you cannot do this alone. You need the community. You need to be able to depend on each other, share resources, share ideas, understand, be vulnerable, be extremely vulnerable to learn, to grow, to develop, so that you can understand what are the pathways that exist for you, be it whatever you're trying to prove out for yourself, be it go to market, product market fit, whatever it may be. Know very specifically what your business needs, and then understand what are the connecting dots along the way. In that, again, what are the right stakeholders to bring to the table to help you achieve those goals that you have. The more specific you are in that, and I know people always say, well, if you're too specific, then you're leaving something on the table. It's not that. For me, in fact, I've noticed that if I'm very niche in my ask, I know exactly whom I need to talk to and exactly what my ask needs to be. And that's something, it's a lesson I've learned over time. I wish I could say it was all like that from day one, but it's a
Wisdom.
lesson I've learned. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I would
Well,
say.
that's great. Well, Shireen, I want to thank you, so much for coming on here. I want to congratulate you again for being a part of the accelerator, winning the accelerator. And again, we're, just thrilled to have you here in our community, deploying this innovation and growing, and maybe even growing here in San Antonio as you continue to grow, as this being a home base. Wink, wink, hint, hint, as you guys continue to grow. But thank you so much for coming on our episode today.
Thank you so much, man. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for thinking up this accelerator program. None of this would have existed if you hadn't thought of it, with MHM. So
Well,
thank
thank you. I
you as
appreciate
well.
it. Joint effort between Jamie Wazlowski and myself. He's a good man and a visionary, and it's just been exciting to be a part of this and with what you guys are doing there at Yumlish. Again, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.